Welcome back to the 12th Man podcast. It's been a few weeks since we did a podcast. Of course, the international break. I was sick as well for a couple of weeks there. Cold, I just couldn't shift. And I had so much on my football too. So I'm off for football for 4 weeks. So I've got a bit more time to finish the season out here. We're going to be looking at Liverpool, 13 points clear, title almost in their hands now. Just a matter of time now, really, before they're crowned champions. We'll look at the risk for Europe and look ahead. We'll look at Spurs and Man United as well. Difficult seasons for them. And we'll look ahead to the European second legs. Of course, some big games over the next few nights. Owen, I usually ask you, how are you? I don't really have to ask you because I know you're in good form with Liverpool flying. But just as a neutral, maybe this is because Spurs haven't struck. I don't know. But I don't think it's been a great season to watch. And I don't want to discredit Liverpool in any way, but I don't think they would have won the league in the last few seasons with the standard they produced this year. I think first half of the season, yeah. I think under any other circumstance, the way they've been playing the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks, they'd be under real pressure to retain their title. They won the title even in this position they're in, just because they've been kind of coasting through games. And again, yesterday they were probably fortunate they won it. So, I mean, what's your overall... Before we get on to Liverpool, what's your overall feeling on the Premier League season this year?
It has been poor. Like, nobody expected the drop off of Man City. Nobody expected Liverpool to be in the position that they're in. I think everyone was expecting, if Man City did slightly drop off, that it would be Arsenal. And obviously, injuries haven't helped them. But I'm not going to sit here and say I'm sad about it, or say I'm raging that the league hasn't been great, because as much as the league hasn't been great, there's always going to be a team that has to show consistency throughout the season, and we've done that.
Yeah. No, you can't. As I said, I don't want to discredit Liverpool. You know, winning the league's never easy. But, I mean, we'll chat about it in a minute, but I think Liverpool will have to do so much more next year to win it, because I expect teams to come back stronger. And even just watching the Champions League games, seeing the levels of PSG and Barcelona are raising, I just don't think there's any team anywhere near that level at the moment.
So Arsenal whacked Real Madrid, did they? PSG whacked
us. I'm kind of referencing PSG and Barcelona when I'm looking at how they play. You know, I don't find Liverpool particularly great to watch at times. I think Man City have been boring at times, more so this year than any other year. I think Gary Neville spoke about it quite well yesterday, that football has become quite robotic at times. We're seeing more and more teams. We've seen it yesterday with Chelsea's fans booing, the keeper playing out of the back. And you don't see too many players anymore, taking players on and running past them. And I think that's what PSG and Barcelona have that our teams don't at the moment. And I think that's why I really enjoyed watching the Champions League last week. You look at some of the other teams in the Premier League at the moment, and it all very much is about keeping the ball and keeping control of games rather than making it a really entertaining watch. And if it works for teams, it works for teams. But I just don't. I think at the moment the English teams are in danger of falling behind some of these other teams.
It seems to be at the moment, but there's only, for me, if you're looking down that route, there's only one man they blame, isn't there? And you say blame because he's probably the most successful manager, second most successful manager in England. But everyone seems to be modeling themselves on Pep these days. But I noticed yesterday too, Carragher said, in terms of Liverpool, that we lack a lot of pace in the team, which I do agree with. Like Salah, he's not slow, but he's not as quick as he was. Diaz is quick, but he's not electric. The only real man with electric pace in our team would be Nunez, and he's not going to be there come the summer, hopefully. But I was like, what turned it for me as well was the Manchester Derby last week. That was just, I was probably one of the
I've had the pleasure of watching PSG 4 times now in the last few weeks, 3 times in the last few weeks, twice against Liverpool and against Aston Villa. And very impressive, the level that they're at. They made Aston Villa, who are, let's be honest, are in brilliant form in the Premier League. They never laid a glove on PSG. And to be honest, bar the 45 minutes of the second game, if you if you take the 90 minutes in Paris and the extra time in Anfield, you know, in the first half as well, bar the first maybe 15 minutes, PSG dominated that Liverpool team.
Yeah,
And you really should have put the tie, you know, beyond any
it's
doubt,
gonna
really.
be
But
it's gonna be interesting to see if PSG, if things go the way you expect them to go, PSG versus Arsenal. We've seen that already this season, but it's gonna be a different game, you would suspect, this time.
are we seeing a changing of the guard though in terms of, you know, you go back to when Barcelona were dominant in Europe, on their Pep. You know, the English teams were struggling. Then you had Bayern Munich were winning the Champions League, Inter Milan were winning the Champions League, and PSG and Barcelona. I think everybody would like to see in the final as a neutral, because the two
Yeah,
teams will go at each other hammer and tong. Very similar styles as well. You know, both got wide players that like to take players on as well, and they both like to dominate the ball. So it'll be a really, really good game. But are we in danger of the English teams now for the first time in maybe 5 or 6 years of, you know, being secondary to some of these European teams?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a danger, because football does, as you say, as you mentioned there, football does go in cycles. Like, and to be honest, if Liverpool don't win a European competition, I couldn't care less if an English team wins it. Let's be honest. Like, I'm not one of these who be so, oh, you should support the English teams. Like, if United's playing Barca in a final, I want Barca to win. If they're playing Arsenal in a final, I want. But the only two teams maybe I would consider is Newcastle and Spurs, because Spurs haven't won anything in years, and I kind of like Newcastle. But all or not, no. If there's an English team, if there's an English team in the final that's not Liverpool, I'd rather them not win it.
Yeah. Callum saying here must be a poor renewal of the Champions League if Arsenal and PSG are working their course. I think that's in reference to what I was saying about the Premier League.
Yeah,
The one thing I would say about the Real Madrid thing is I haven't been particularly impressed with them at any stage of the Champions League this
yeah.
season. I think they've
Did
got
you
a lot of
see?
quality players,
Did you see
individuals that can do things.
Mbappe's tackle yesterday?
Yeah, it was powerful. I think they've got a really, really, you know, really, really talented footballers on their team. But they watch, they're not great particularly. You know,
They
Arsenal have a
remind me
lot of
of.
injuries. Arsenal battered them for 90 minutes. You know, Atletico Madrid really should have put them out. I watched Atlanta batter Real Madrid in a game in the league phase, and Madrid somehow won a 3-2.
We
Like,
beat them
I
as
don't
well.
think what's up.
We beat them as well early on.
You beat them comfortably. I mean, so, you know, Real Madrid, whilst they have a lot of talented players, I
They
think the
remind
results
me.
against Barcelona over the last couple of years tell its own story, that Barcelona have been comfortably beating them. So I
Yeah,
think there's no doubt that Barcelona are the big dogs in Spain at the moment,
they remind
as
Real
opposed to
Madrid.
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid remind me of PSG when they had Mbappe, when they had Messi, when they
Yeah.
had Neymar.
And look, in regards to the Arsenal too, you know, obviously it's been a disappointing league season for them. They've had a lot of injuries, which have definitely impacted their season. But you know, Arsenal showed a really good level that night, and I think that'll be the frustrating thing for Arteta, that they showed how good they could be against Real Madrid, but we haven't seen that enough in the Premier League. As I says regarding PSG, I think they've shown against Liverpool and Villa they're a real force. So
Well,
I
it's
think
kind of.
they're probably an anomaly in terms of,
Yeah,
you know, we haven't seen too many really strong French teams in a number of years. I know
it's
PSG have been knocking on the door, but
uh,
again, but like Real Madrid individuals, I think as a team, this PSG team are up there with the best at the
yeah.
moment.
I love I love their three in midfield of Neves, Vitinha, and Ruiz. They
Very
both.
reminiscent of the Barcelona Pep team, where they had three very technical midfielders.
Yeah.
Don't really see that too often. A lot of teams now have a destroyer in there, or you know, a box to box
Well,
player in there.
Liverpool kind of have We don't really have a destroyer. We would have technical-ish players with McAllister and Gravenberch and what do you call him? Szoboszlai or Jones there.
Well, I know what you mean, but you wouldn't pick Gravenberch on the level of some of those boys in terms of what they
No,
do with
no,
the ball
no,
at their feet,
no,
if you know what I mean.
no. You definitely wouldn't. But there's a reason why a lot of teams wanted Joe Neves, and there was a lot of raised eyebrows that he went to PSG at the time, because their league obviously isn't competitive.
One of the things as well that was very impressive with PSG, and again reminiscent of the Pep Barcelona team, was how quickly they won the ball back, how they pressed together in numbers. Liverpool couldn't cope with it, and Villa couldn't cope with it. And let's be honest, Villa and Liverpool have two really tactical managers in Slot and Emery, who can set up the frustrate teams, and you know, don't always necessarily think it's all about us. like an Ange or an Amram where they just sort of focus on what they do. They obviously they do a lot of homework on the team they're playing, and they couldn't cope with PSG. So I think at the moment, PSG and Barcelona, for me, are way ahead. Now things can happen over two. Could Arsenal frustrate PSG and put them out? We set piece goals. Who knows? They could. Inter Milan could do the same to Barcelona, but I think at the moment the level they're producing against our good sides is really impressive. Like Dortmund Dortmund are no bad team, and they were whacked by Barcelona 4-0.
Nice. Here, I'm not. I know Arsenal are probably going to go through, but there's something in me. I have Real Madrid get an early goal. Don't know why, but it's just maybe it's just PTSD from past years. But it's gonna be a very interesting Champions League semi-final round, regardless of who's there.
Getting with that topic, but we'll continue because there's a few comments here from Barry from the City View. Barry, if you haven't seen Barry's podcast, make sure to check it out. The City View
who does Barry support in English terms?
Liverpool. Barry's podcast is really, really good. I've had the pleasure of being on it a couple of times as well. So make sure to check out the City View podcast. Really good podcast, all things Derry City, and some really, really good content on there. So he said Madrid can beat Arsenal this week and convincingly, even without Gabriel. But if Arsenal get through, PSG will have too much. They were vastly superior to Liverpool and Paris. And he's saying here, he's just put it up again on his own page. Liverpool, they've been sensational since Christmas, making Liverpool look very ordinary. And Liverpool are a lot better than Arsenal. So that is the thing. I mean, did you sense, like, when Liverpool were playing PSG, that at times the players were just stunned by how good they were? 'Cause I looked at Villa last week, and it just looked like a total mismatch in terms of quality on the ball, off the ball. It's almost as if Villa just could not cope with his PSG team.
It's like, I think when we drew PSG at the time, I was thinking, because obviously I'm not going to sit and say I've seen a lot of them this season. I haven't. I've only watched a handful of games because I don't watch the French league, so I've only seen what I've seen in the Champions League, and they didn't really impress me in the league phase. From what I did see, apart from the Man City games, because they were on the borderline of getting eliminated at one point, and as Barry said there, since after Christmas they've just turned a corner, whatever it is. But they just, as he said there, he just bullied our midfield from start to finish. And obviously in Paris we got a sucker punch at the end with Elliott, but even in the second leg, we were good for the first 15-20, but after that they took control really.
And let's focus on Premier League for now. We will come back to the Champions League, of course. Liverpool are 13 points clear. No matter what you think of this Premier League, that is a great achievement to be 13 points clear with 6 games to go. Titles done and dusted, really. It's just a formality, and it's when and not if Liverpool won the league.
Beat Spurs, they won it. That'd be lovely.
Could win it as early as next week as well. If Arsenal lose the Ipswich on Sunday, they could win it against an already relegated Leicester. Leicester could be relegated before kickoff on Sunday as well, officially. So some interesting scenarios coming into play now, of course, as we move towards the end of the season. But, a lot of talk about Salah, Van Dijk, and it was Van Dijk who got the all-important winning goal against West Ham. And listen, it was an important goal because I know Arsenal did drop points as well, but you kind of felt that they needed to get a win against West Ham just to get back on track and get this wrapped up as soon as possible. I think it'll be frustrating for Arsenal seeing that Liverpool have been dropping points over the last few weeks and they haven't really been able to capitalise on it. But Van Dijk, Owen, of course, a very important player for Liverpool, one of the best defenders we've seen in the Premier League, and it looks like he's going to sign a new contract as well. So I suppose great news all around for Van Dijk and Liverpool.
I've said from day dot that I expect them to this day. So I was proven right on that. And you say there how important is Van Dijk to Liverpool? I mean, him and Alisson. Yes, Salah came in a year or two before them, but Van Dijk and Alisson for me are the two best signings the club made, just in terms of how different it made us as a team, like how good we were defensively. And I think for me, obviously I'm a bit biased, but for me, he's probably the best centre half I've seen in the Premier League. Like he doesn't have the titles they back it up, like of a Vidic, of a Terry, of a Ferdinand, but for me, he's just the best they ever do it, and I'm grateful.
I've had these kind of questions come up recently with people in work and stuff, and not necessarily this argument, but I've heard these arguments before about strikers and defenders,
Yeah,
midfielders, even teams. Someone was telling me today, Arsenal, the Invincibles, are a lot better than Man City's treble winning team, or any people are just having their own opinion on it. I've seen Chelsea or Lampard and Mourinho this week were saying that they were a better team. The team that won the league the year after, the
yeah.
Invincibles, were a better team. Only lost one game that they shouldn't have against the Man City team before the money that they really should have won. Conceded less goals, got more points. So look, there really is no way they cannot.
It's just
Way I look at it, these are all world class players. It's hard to give an opinion on it, but I don't really like the comparing, say, strikers from 20 years ago to strikers now, because football's changed a lot, or
it's like
defenders and teams that played 20 years ago to teams that play now.
no, I do agree. It's like people who go, "Oh, Van Dijk couldn't cope with Drogba," and you're like, you don't know that. It's never going to be a scenario that they come up against. So, uh, could Haaland have coped with Vidic? Like it's one of them. You don't know. But for me, a lot of people are saying he's more important to sign on than Salah. But hey, I'm gonna enjoy both of them for the next 2 years, and come after that, we'll see. But I think going into the summer too, it's big for new signings, knowing that the two talisman really. Yes, we're losing Trent, but the two talisman are staying for the foreseeable future anyway.
Yeah, I actually was watching a wee bit of the Monday Night Football build up before I come on, and they're actually analysing Liverpool and West Ham. I can't hear what they're saying because of the volume turned down really low.
Mm.
But one thing I've definitely noticed, though, over the last few games regarding Van Dijk is he's made a number of mistakes. Not always punished, but a number of mistakes. Are we starting to see the effects of him getting older and the fact he's had to play so often because there's been no other centre back fit really for long? Kanate's been out injured, Gomez has been out. Van Dijk's played every game. Are we starting to see the effects that the lack of squad depth at Liverpool? They're yesterday I thought they were quite fortunate they won from seeing I didn't see the game, but I watched the highlights, and West Ham had some big moments.
Yeah.
The Fulham game in the first half, I know Liverpool come back and probably could have got something in the second half, but the first half against Fulham they were totally outplayed. The PSG games that we referenced, and Van Dijk, even against Everton in the first half, there was a couple of mistakes in Van Dijk as well. So are we starting to see the fatigue catching up with Van Dijk and some of these other players that have had to play so often?
I mean, I think Van Dijk. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Van Dijk's played every Premier League game, every Champions League game. He's played. He played. I think he's played in the League Cup. I know he played in the final and the semis, but I think he played before that too. I think we just need a break, and the players.
Sorry, what I would say is a lot of these mistakes that he's made just looks like lapses in concentration more than anything. So that points to fatigue.
Nah, it could be too. Like obviously they're professionals too. They know. I know they're saying in interviews, "Oh, we have jobs to do. We have jobs," but they know this league's been done since Christmas, so they're not going to give their 100% best, even if they say they are behind the scenes. Sure, look at Salah. He hasn't. I know he had a great assist yesterday, but he hasn't scored in his last 5 or 6. So I think it's just that point of the season. Once we get this title wrapped up next week or this week or whenever it is, I think we'll start to see a few changes on and out because the game's really then are dead rubber. So why not give a Kesa a go? Why not give an Elliot a go? Because there's nothing to lose, anyway.
Of course, a massive story running all season was Mo Salah. Would he sign his contract? Would he stay? Would he move on? And we found out just a few days ago that he will be staying at Liverpool, a 2-year contract signed on about £400,000 a week plus any bonuses. So big money contract. Will Salah be the one that breaks the rule? We've seen Rooney sign a big contract and fall off. Aubameyang sign a big contract and fall off. Ozil sign a big contract and fall off. Will Salah be the exception? Will he continue this great form?
He'll not be as good as this season, I don't think. But I can't see him drop. I can't see him dropping off a cliff now. He reminds me of, not in terms of ability, but he reminds me of Ronaldo in terms of that mentality of wanting to score goals, wanting to assist, wanting to break records. Like I seen yesterday, he broke Henry's record for the most goals and assists in a 38 game season. That's like that's mental. And for a man who was ridiculed when he came on the Liverpool at the start because of his Chelsea days, they be like there'll be kids growing up thinking because they've never seen JR play, so there'll be kids saying, "Oh, for me, Salah's the best ever play." Like so, they have that legacy then at Liverpool. It's just I think for the next 2 years, yes, he'll probably slow down, but I think for the next 2 years, he'll still be our main man to get us the goals. Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully subsidize that with a brand new striker in the summer because even yesterday watching Jota play, he looks like he's finished as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard Arnie Slot say it's going to be a big summer, and Salah signing, most likely Van Dijk signing will help Liverpool on this big summer. Has the cup performances, against PSG and Newcastle, Plymouth, really enforced the fact that Liverpool are really short in numbers? They they've had better luck than ours with injuries. But as you say, they're kind of paying a price for it now because they have looked tired in leggy in games.
Yeah,
And if they were on a title race at this stage of the season, now you could see probably something similar happening to what's happened in our seasons where they fell off,
yeah.
or they got they got the finals, and I think there was a stat on their club that one season they got the 4 finals and didn't score a goal in any of them. So
I we
they're
I think that was 2022. We won the two finals on. We won the. I think it was three
two
finals we
in a
got.
penalty shootout.
Uh,
Sorry, 3 finals, 2 in shootouts, and
we
they get Madrid.
we,
Yeah.
we got beat by Madrid. That's what it was, and then we lost the league by a point.
Yeah, so are we seeing, that obviously Slot's done a really, really good job and they've been able to keep players fit, but that realistically, if they had been going for all 4 trophies, I know they didn't get far in the FA Cup, I know they got to the final League Cup, and they obviously went out in the last 16, but if they had had quarterfinals and semi-finals, sandwiched on here, it's hard to see how this team could have cope with more games at the moment.
It was the same. It was the same story last season when we got to the. Do you mind last year when we played Atalanta? They played us off the park at Anfield, and then it was 3-0 there, and we beat them away, but we just didn't have the we didn't have the legs to go further forward. But when I look at our squad, there's certain players in there that I like that he's not using. The like of Elliot, I don't know why he's not getting. There must be something there that he doesn't see. And
Well,
Case,
I think we've seen this where I think Arsenal fans have had this where Arteta too, that he doesn't trust enough of his squad. Does that tell you that the likes of players that have been featuring are going to be moved on or going to be trying to be moved on? Because at the end of the day, once they have it, you want to have 16, 17, 18 players in that squad that you can call upon regularly.
yeah,
And he tends to only maybe really use 12 or 13
I mean,
consistently.
going on the next season, just for me sitting here now, going on the next season, the guarantees of being at Liverpool for me are probably Allison, Van Dijk, Robertson, and then obviously McAllister and all them. But like when you look at Elliot, there's question marks. Kesa going to leave? Nunez will leave. Diaz will probably leave.
Jones
It's
possibly as well.
Jones won't leave. Jones will stay.
He's not
Um,
a first team regular, but is he? And I think he needs to play a bit more now if he's going to kick on.
no, and then I think Kanate is one they watch because he's in there. He's in the last year of his contract next season, so we have a decision to make there. If he doesn't sign, do we ship him off in the summer? And then he doesn't seem to rate Jarrell Kwanzaa either. So, but I think Liverpool will sign at least one centre back regardless. And there's who have we been like? Wait a minute, what do you call the boy plays for Bournemouth?
Yeah, there's a few teams looking at him
Yeah,
housing 50 million
Arsenal.
release clause.
And then I think something tells me we'll be doing quite a bit of shopping at Bournemouth this summer in terms of the centre back and left back positions. But in terms of
Shows you what the reality of signing player. I mean, like if Liverpool go to Bournemouth and bring in Houston and Kerkis, it's going to cost them 100 million, we believe, from release clauses, which is
yeah,
and the worst thing about release clauses is they have to be paid in one lump sum. So
yeah,
that's going to be a stumbling block for those. A lot of people would say, it's a release clause. Why does it take so much time? I think that is the main issue when players are signing, when your clubs are signing players with release clauses. Is that it's not so much the fee, it's the installment has to be paid in one full go. So
I think we signed McAllister on a release clause if I remember right, and that took ages to get over the line.
I think Sabozlai too, maybe.
He was on a release clause. That's right. Because I remember. I don't know if you remember, but there was a report at the time where Liverpool weren't going to pay his release clause, and I was going mad. Then like a day later, we signed him. So we'll see how my temperament would be in this summer.
Owen, we kind of referenced it that we don't believe it's been the strongest renewal of the Premier League. Do you
Yeah.
expect that to change next year? Do you expect it to be a lot more competitive up there at the top?
Well, I mean, when you look at it, City will get better. They can't get any worse. Uh, United will get better when Amram gets his. We'll speak about them in a minute. But and then Newcastle only getting stronger. Brighton are a team that are always up with thereabouts. Spurs surely can't get any worse, or they'll be relegated. Like generally, I had this. I was talking about this yesterday. If the bottom three teams weren't that bad, Spurs and United could be in a bad
I
spot.
mean, I agree, and we're going to come on to the Spurs very shortly. I mean, it's a funny one, right? But which team do you think needs more work in the summer, Liverpool or Arsenal, in terms of players?
Probably Liverpool, which is mad to say.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Because I was actually thinking today. I mean, if Arsenal get that striker on, they're not far away. Like they're knocking on the
No,
door, really, aren't they?
we well, I've spoke about it there, right? Liverpool need a left back. We need a right back, a backup right back of some sort. Well, Bradley starts or not. We need. We probably need a creative midfielder. Now we're not going to get this in all one window. We need a striker, and we possibly need a left winger, and we need a centre back. So there's a lot to be done.
Yeah. Do you think Arsenal will start next season as favourites if they get Isak or somebody like him?
They won't get Isaac. I think they'll get Gakades or what. I think they'll get him. I can't see
Sesko.
Isaac. I can't see Isaac
Well,
leaving
I think
Newcastle.
that's a big blow for teams that Newcastle look nailed on now for a Champions League spot. Obviously, Arsenal's won, so it means it's 5 teams now get on. From the
Yeah,
top 5 teams get on. Newcastle won their game at hand on Wednesday. They won the third place, and you know that will put them in a really strong position, and they're in quite good form. They've no other competitions to worry about. They can just focus on the league. They've got players in form, and we've seen what they did at United yesterday, and we'll come on to talk about that. But do you think Isak, if Newcastle secure Champions League football, Isak becomes much more difficult for teams to try and do it?
I think if they get Champions League football, it's locked off that he's going to stay there for at least another season. Uh, and then you look at it too. Like you could argue, Man City need another striker because Marmoush isn't really a striker. He's more like a winger type. Spurs probably need a striker because for me, Solanke hasn't been great since he's come back from his injury. Richarlison. Um, Tell isn't great. And then who United definitely need somebody.
I think you're right. I think a lot of clubs are going to be looking for a striker in the summer, and that's going to
Yeah.
inflate the
No,
market.
Liverpool are looking for. Apparently, Liverpool's favorite person at the minute is your man Ekatike, who scored against Spurs last week. So,
Great goal
that's-
against Spurs, but maybe we'll see more on Thursday night. But all or not, he was quite ineffective. But look, you're seeing him in one game, but the great finish, of course. And final question on Liverpool. Have we already seen the effects? I know Trent in the team with Salah's we kind of give him a grace period with the Ramadan, but that's been over now for quite a bit.
yeah.
When Salah's
Well,
numbers haven't been there, I suppose he has to develop a new relationship with somebody else. But Trent does provide a lot of creativity.
it is,
Is it going to be difficult for Liverpool to replace that?
that's why I was thinking we'll go and get a creative midfielder. I seen us today linked with your man out of Leipzig, Javi Simons. We've been linked with him a lot. Because I don't think Sabozlai is not that creative. McAllister can be. Jones isn't. Gravenberch isn't. I don't think Gravenberch has scored or assisted this season. He definitely hasn't scored. But we definitely need some player to fill the creative hole in the team because as much as Bradley gives you defensively a bit more than Trent gives you a lot more going forward. So it's trying to find that balance of someone who can defend and attack, which is hard to get. But I seen today we've been linked with Frank Pong again or Bayer Leverkusen, but I don't know if there's anything to that.
And probably the most exciting end part of the season is going to be the race for European football. Premier League's wrapped up and the relegation's wrapped up. It's looking very much for the Champions League places that it's going to be 3 from 5. Liverpool and Arsenal are going to be there, and then it's going to be 3 from 5 of these teams. Forest currently sitting third. but Newcastle have a game in hand on Wednesday night that could jump above them.
It's a
Forest would
coin
then drop.
toss, isn't it?
Yeah, Newcastle, Man City, Chelsea, and Villa. And there's some games where these teams play each other as well over the next few weeks. So
Newcastle are playing Villa at the weekend too.
yeah, Newcastle are going to Villa at the weekend. Forest play Chelsea at Forest in the last game of the season, so that could be quite interesting.
I think Chelsea are done.
How do you see it at the moment? Then as you say, Chelsea have been poor recently. They were kind of being labelled in a title race at Christmas time. They've dropped off massively. Forest have lost their last 2 games. Villa and Newcastle definitely seem to be the form teams. Man City seem to be doing enough at the moment to stay in there. How do you see it there?
What do you want me to do from 3rd to 5th?
Yeah, give me 3rd to 5th.
I'm going to go Newcastle, Villa, Man City,
Forest and Chelsea. Outside.
I think so. I think Forest have crumbled at the wrong time. And I think I defeated it.
So they may be able to get themselves back on track on Easter Monday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Let's come on to talk about Spurs and Man United because, again, just looking to me right, they're analysing Man United yesterday. I listened to Roy Keane today. He was quite harsh on United as he has been for a number of years. It's been really, really poor from both teams. Probably poorer than anyone could ever imagine, really.
That's what I said. If the relegation teams weren't as bad as they are, we could be talking about a madness.
You say that, but both teams is on 37 and 38 points. I mean, you're unlikely to be relegated.
No, I'm saying like if say the 3 relegated teams were like a lot better and it was a lot tighter, you could be squeaky bum time. Is what I mean.
Yeah, but I think you're unlikely to be relegated even if the league finished now and in any other season. You tend to be safe week 37, 38, but good chance they'll probably get over 40. They're bound to get one between them each. Maybe,
I don't know what. Like you're more versed than me to talk about Spurs, but I will start with them. I would say, but
let's look at it because there's 32 games going. Spurs have 37 points. Man United have 38. Spurs have lost 17 of their 32 games. Man United 14. Spurs have actually won one more game than Man United. Man United have drew a lot more than Spurs.
The bad thing is Spurs are one of the top goal scorers in the league, aren't they?
Spurs are the 2nd top goal scorers in the league behind Liverpool, which is crazy. But obviously conceded a lot of goals. There's actually some teams above Spurs that have scored less and conceded more but have more points, which is crazy. But it's just been that kind of season.
When you look at the goal. When you look at the type of goals they're conceding, like they own goal yesterday, and then I don't know.
All 4 goals yesterday were a joke. But look, anyway, 32 games gone, and that's the kind of position that they're in. Owen, I mean, how do you think it's got to this stage for both teams where it's been such a dismal season? Both sets of fans are kind of expecting defeat every week. You look at the goals that Spurs and Spurs and Man United conceded yesterday. Really, really poor goals. Yeah. Confidence just so low in the 2 groups that every game is becoming really, really difficult for them. As the managers, not doing their jobs. The only thing you could say in both defenses to their managers is they're not the first managers at their clubs. They struggle. So as it bigger here than just Ange and Amram.
Well, you're saying that. What do the 2 clubs have in common? They both hate their owners. So, even though United aren't enamored with Jim Radcliffe and Spurs, it's well documented that.
I don't think Liverpool are particularly happy with FSG, but they're still winning games.
No, I'm not. No, even when we're winning games, it all comes down to the summer for me. If they don't spend the summer, I will lose my. It's a weird one because obviously Spurs were decimated by injuries at the start of the season. Up until about January, February, March time. So that sort of affected their season a lot. But they have all their players back now, and it's still the same. So it's surely if he's lose to Frankfurt on Thursday, surely he doesn't see the rest of the season.
I was listening to a lot of Spurs podcasters. There was one on Sky Sports News today, and he is saying that he can't believe that the club have let this continue with Ange. We've been hearing for a number of months now that the Liverpool game and the Cup's going to be a big game for him. The Villa game and the FA Cup's going to be a big game for him. The Europa League games. I mean, they're what really have probably kept him on his job, that he's had that Europa League in the background, that there is still a chance of winning a trophy, and albeit a small one, but there was still an opportunity, and he did have players injured, so there was kind of a lot of excuses being made for Ange. But I kind of felt in January that things weren't going to improve too much based on what I was seeing from some of the players on the pitch. I think the other credit during that difficult Christmas period, and the early part of the new year, they beat Liverpool as well, and I was there that night, and I kind of felt that the players were still with Ange, even though the results weren't good. But over the last sort of 5 or 6 weeks, players, you say, have returned, and it's actually got worse at times. So there's definitely a lot of things happening in the background, and obviously we've seen Ange and the supporters have been a number of clashes, and Ange has reacted to a few things, and that's not helped. And I think the situation's just got worse and worse and worse, and I'm very surprised that the club haven't acted. In the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks, they remove Ange, and they've kind of let it go on. And I know Thursday night's a big game, but actually, one of the podcasters said that even if Spurs somehow won the Europa League, they still don't think Ange can stay on, and that tells you how bad it's got. So,
there's a lot of
where do you think Spurs should have maybe pulled the plug with Ange, or would changing Ange have changed anything? We've seen them change managers before in the past, and it's not necessarily worked either.
I know, but I just don't think I messaged you. Was it? I don't know if it was after the Frankfurt game. I just said I messaged you and said he's lost it. Like he doesn't look happy. And I've listened to some of his press conferences, and he seems to talk about Liverpool a lot. He seems to be like, oh, they get the rub. It's like maybe we have, but that's not the reason you're 17th. Or sorry, user on form. I mean, user like 17, but it's like it's definitely a weird one for me. I think they should have sacked him after we beat these in the League Cup.
Yeah, they didn't.
I think that was, for me, that was the big one. Yes, you still had the. Did you still have the FA Cup at that point?
Yeah, the FA Cup was the next game.
Because I think if you sacked him now, yes, you might not got your top target, but for me. I've said this a lot on here. Him and Madison don't seem to click. Romero doesn't look interested anymore.
I think he's benefited from some of the decisions that's been made in the past, and that they've maybe changed managers and it's not worked. So they thought maybe let's just let him ride this out, get his players back, and see if there's improvement.
Do you think, regardless if he's won the Europa League, he's gone?
Yeah, I don't think he can stay on. I don't think he'll want to stay on, to be totally honest. I think he looks, as you say, he doesn't look happy. He looks beaten. He looks like he's not enjoying it. The players don't look like they're enjoying it. The fans at him aren't getting on. There's a whole host of issues, which makes it, I think, very difficult for him to stay on. But I don't know. I mean, we've seen this happen now with a few managers at Spurs, where it's become a very broken, strained relationship with the fans towards the end. Conte and the fans fell out. Mourinho and the fans fell out. I know he didn't come as a big, with his Chelsea connection. And even towards the ends, even though a lot of people were disappointed when Pochettino was sacked, there was still people that were saying that maybe Pochettino should go because they were going backwards. So, there seems to be this sort of, and I think because it's got so bad, some fans have maybe realised that maybe we should have given Pochettino more time. But I remember at the time when Pochettino was sacked, there was people that didn't want him sacked, but there was still people that were happy that that there was being a change being made. So this seems to be a reoccurring theme. And although Ange has got to take a lot of responsibility, the history tells you that there's just definitely something a lot more bigger going on here than just the managers.
It's the same with United too, isn't it? Like they've changed managers.
And what I would say, I'm sorry for jumping on, but if you look at Spurs and Man United as well, the managers are going for it's all different types of managers. They've tried different styles, different personalities. None of it seemed to be working.
We'll speak about Spurs in a second, but it came out. When Amram got the job, it came out that he didn't want the job, but when he got it, he wanted to wait to the summer, and he's been proven. But they told him, you had a ticket now, you're not getting it, and he's been proven right because none. Well, I wouldn't say none, but very few of them players fit his style of play. And with Spurs, it just seems like the players have lost faith in Ange. And
One thing I would say in regards to Spurs and the differences, I do think Spurs have better players. I think that's the
yeah,
really, really damaging part. That
yeah,
you look at that United team and you think wouldn't take many of their players. I think a lot of clubs would take Kulusevski. There'd be a fair few clubs that would want Madison.
yeah,
I think Stones ran its course, but I think still some teams would take him. I think if
yeah.
they watched them every week, they probably wouldn't, but he still got a very good reputation. Brennan
Well,
Johnson's done a lot more than any Man United's way players. You know,
I actually seen Man City apparently are interested for Udogi in the summer.
yeah, Doggy and people like Spence, Bergville. There was a few Liverpool fans in the pub on Thursday night were saying to me they'd love Bergville, Liverpool, just the way
Well,
they see.
Barcelona
Barcelona,
would be
so
working.
Van de Ven, I think a lot of clubs would take Romero's being top way move. So I think there is a lot of players there at Spurs that you expect better from. Maybe a new manager can do more with them, but I think in United's case, a lot of them players, I don't think a lot of teams would be looking for. So let's talk about United because you mentioned it there. Amram kind of wanted to wait until the summer, read out the squad, get some players in, and then go.
Yeah,
And this is now we need you in now. 6 1s out of 21 league games in the league. It's not a great return.
no,
The one thing I would say is, Roy Keane was quite critical of him and the United team yesterday. Um, the one thing I would say is, yes, he probably does need his own players, but the problem being now is his free passes kind of gone because
yeah,
the baggage of the season now, if they get off to a bad start next season, you're going to see a lot of United fans saying, no, this isn't the boy. So
no,
it's
no. It's
it's
just
not
it's
going to help
just
Amram now that he's had this really per season, really.
no, because even like he's been on since November, so it could have made a push for the European places by then. Like I know they were still sort of sitting well behind, but as you say, what they've only won 6 league games out of 21.
Yeah.
That's not good enough for a club of the size of United. And if just say he does get a few of his own boys in the summer, what if we're sitting here come Christmas time and they're ninth, 10th again?
I think the issue for United and Amram is they need so many players. That's just not going to be
Well,
realistic in 1 month. I mean,
they
Roy
need.
Keane says yesterday it's got to the point where forget about even bringing in quality players. He says we need players that are big, strong, and can run
Brother.
because we have got weak players physically, weak
Yeah.
players mentally, and they're getting bullied. And
You,
Newcastle bullied them yesterday, and we've seen United get bullied in games before. Is that the big worry that I think Gary Neville says? You look at some of these players and they wouldn't get anywhere near anybody else's teams in the Premier wouldn't go near them. He says I don't think maybe bar Bruno Fernandes, none of them would touch a Newcastle team, and Newcastle's just a team fighting for top four. So I
yeah.
think that shows you where they're at the moment, and it's going to be a very difficult uphill task for Amram to get United competitive in the next sort of 12 to 18 months.
I know, and it's well where he gets the time to do that is another question. But no, like if I look at that United team, even Bruno Fernandes, yes, he's a quality player, but I don't think I would want them at Liverpool just because his attitude never sits right with me. He just cries at everything. You seen
Hmm.
yesterday, he said, "What was it? I only moan at my teammates because I know how good they are." Well, they're not that good if you're sitting 14th, 15th in the league. Like,
Yeah. Oh, and despite all the negativity, both teams still do have an opportunity. They
mm,
finish the season with some sort of success. I mean, both teams have drawn their first game in Europe, and they face a second game shootout. Spurs take on Frankfurt away. United host Lyon at home. I mean, would winning this competition for any team change much? I mean, United have won cups in the last couple of seasons. It hasn't really done much for them. I know this one would get them under the Champions League, but you know, other than maybe a bit more cash they spend, and obviously it would be great for the supporters. They want European trophy, but in terms of the outlook, you know, does it change much in your opinion of where they're going to be next year?
no, well, it might change the caliber of player they can attract in the summer. Because obviously the better the player, the want they play in the Champions League. Like, but I think for me, looking as a neutral, well, saying neutral, I don't want Man United they won to be honest. But me looking at it as a football fan, it's a lot bigger for Spurs than it is United, in my opinion. Just because Spurs haven't won a trophy in what is it now, 16 years, 17 years.
Yeah, 2008.
Lots happened since then.
Big time.
But
Well, let's get into these predictions because the European games kick off tomorrow night. We'll go through all these games in the Champions League and the Europa League. I'm not going to even think about the Conference League because there's some teams on it that I don't even recognise, and it's a quarter-final stage, and that tells you everything about that competition.
I've said this. See, if Liverpool ever qualified for that, I would not watch it.
Aston Villa face a very difficult task of turning around that 3-1 defeat in Paris. Paris scoring, or PSG scoring that last-minute goal really gives them a comfortable advantage. Now, Villa, we know Villa Park can be a fortress. We know it can be strong. They beat Bayern Munich earlier in the season, so they will have belief they can get a result. But the problem is it's hard to see PSG not scoring the amount of chances they create.
I think last week, didn't they have like 26 shots or something?
And they did the same to Liverpool, didn't they? They had 30-odd shots.
So as you say, Liverpool were coming into the second leg at home with a lead. So we didn't need to score.
And the worry is Villa are going to have to open up from the start, really. You think not open up completely, but they're if they go on at halftime 0-0, it's not a disaster, but it's they're no further. They need to try and get on the front foot early, and because PSG gets so much of the ball, they could frustrate the crowd. And if there is Villa players start coming players forward, PSG have the piss on the counter attack as well. They hurt them, so I think they have it all on. They do tomorrow night.
I can't see it. I'm going to go 2-0 PSG.
So PSG's through. Second legs, just for show here, really. Barcelona cruising. Absolutely hammered Dortmund in that first game. Barcelona, many people see them as favourites. The Champions League, do you think they are the team to beat?
It's between them and PSG for me.
Yeah, and of course they cannot meet in the final. So
even if Real Madrid somehow get past Arsenal, I think either of these teams would beat them.
Yeah. So you think Barcelona will be comfortable enough in Dortmund? Will they go a rotated team? Who knows?
No, I don't think they'll rotate too heavily because they still have to. They went to Liverpool with a 3-0 lead, and we all know what happened there. So I don't think they'll disrespect it, but I can't say anything. But another Barcelona, I'll go 3-0 Barca.
Real Madrid take on Arsenal on Wednesday night. Arsenal 3-0 up again in a really, really good position. We've seen Madrid make comebacks before in the past and recently, of course, as well. But this would be really, really something. 3-0 down against an Arsenal team that are pretty watertight. They don't give up too many goals. They don't even give up too many chances.
Yeah.
So this would be the cherry on the top if they could turn this around. But who knows? If they get an early goal, Mbappe's through on goal and gets taken out for a last man tackle, red card, free kick is on. Who knows? But I think Madrid need a lot to go their way for this to be turned around.
I actually think they'll win the game, but I don't think they'll go through. I'm going to go 1-0 Real Madrid because I think Arsenal will attack, but I think Arsenal will try and just sit back as well and had Real on the counter because Real have to push from the start, whereas Arsenal don't.
Yeah, probably the tightest of the Champions League games is Inter Milan and Bayern Munich. Inter Milan got a 2-1 away in Munich. Inter Milan are a really, really difficult team. Again, they score against, and we've seen they've got the experience of the last few years in this competition. They've done quite well on it. Got to the final a few years ago against Man City, of course, and they've improved since. Again, Bayern Munich have it all on here away at the San Siro. Inter Milan's going to make it very difficult for them to turn this around.
They are. I'm going to go 1-0 Bayern on the night and 30 go through on penalties.
That'd be a great result for Bayern. On 90 marks, but you haven't got their man will do them in penalties. So that would leave PSG against Arsenal and Barcelona against Inter Milan. How would you see them two guys going then?
Barca PSG final I would go for.
And who wins it?
Barcelona, just
Barca. Moving on to Thursday, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot more on the line on Thursday in terms of these games are a lot tighter. There's 3 ties that were a draw, so very much on the line. Bilbao, who would host the final, battered Rangers at the Ibrox, couldn't score. So in the end, it was a good result for Rangers because they played with 10 men since the 13th minute. But
Yep.
they probably know deep down before the draw was made they needed to get a one at home because Bilbao away is going to be very, very difficult for them.
Yeah.
But we've seen Rangers in Europe pull off big results, and this would be a really, really big result. I don't think Rangers would fear Man United or Leon in the next round.
No.
So, I mean, who knows? This is an opportunity, but I think Bilbao will be the big favourites.
I'm going to go 2-0 Atletico Bilbao. I just think because they're home and because they know that they're going to be, if they get to the final, they're going to be not favourites. They want it, but well, maybe depending on who they're playing, but they're going to have a home crowd behind them. So I'm going to go 2-0 Bilbao.
Frankfurt take on Spurs in Germany. Spurs missed a lot of opportunity. I mean, they haven't been playing well recently, but they were a bit better against Frankfurt.
Yep.
Denied by the crossbar 3 times, and the goalkeeper also had a great game. That is a killer for Spurs. If they do go out, they lost it in that first leg, I believe. They were you could say a couple of them they were unlucky in terms of the Bergville one from distance hits the bar. I mean, it could have went that. It was very unlucky not to go on.
Yeah.
But will they pay the penalty for that first leg? Sort of lack of ruthlessness in front of goal. The only if this was a Spurs team playing anywhere near what they've shown on their range at their best, I would find it because I was not overly impressed with Frankfurt. I thought they were there for taking. Although, from what I hear, they're a very, very different team at home.
Apparently, to be fair, that's the last week was the first time I watched them. But apparently, from what I've heard, listening to Germany pre-watch Bundesliga, apparently their home atmosphere is very intense. It's whether Spurs can cope with that is another thing. I'm going to go 2-0 Frankfurt. Sorry.
2-0 Frankfurt. Lazio were shocked by Bodo Glimt in the first leg in Norway.
They drew last night too, didn't they?
Yeah, Lazio did that. Roma, wasn't it? Lazio were seen as favourites when the quarter-final draw was made because they were supposed to be playing the weakest team left in Bodo. But that hasn't materialised the way people thought. Can they turn this around at home?
Nah, you would. I don't want to disrespect Bodo Glimt, but you would expect them. They all go 3-0 Lazio, but just because they're home.
3-0 Lazio. Well, it will be very, very interesting. If Spurs could get past Frankfurt and Bodo Glimt held out. I mean, that would be a dream semi-final draw at this stage.
Is that who you
respect Bodo? But if you play them in a semi-final, you'd be jumping up and down.
Oh.
So it'll be interesting to see. And finally, Man United take on Leon. 2-2 in the first game. Of course, them Onana mistakes didn't help. It'll be interesting to see if Onana comes back in because Binder yesterday made a mistake for the fourth Newcastle goal.
He was bad too, wasn't
he? United have a really, really poor home record. They've actually been better away from home recently. So although they got a great, 2-2 looks like a decent result away, they've had real problems at Old Trafford this season.
Yeah,
so this by no means is a dead certainty that they go through. But how do you see it? I mean, it's a big opportunity for United, but will they take advantage of it?
I'm going to go. I don't know. I'm going to go 2-1 United.
2-1 United. And that would keep the Europa League dream alive. So that would leave then, as you've called it, it would be Bilbao against United and Lazio against Frankfurt. How would you see them two ties going?
I would think Bilbao will beat United, and I would say Frankfurt will beat Lazio.
And then that leaves Bilbao and Frankfurt in the final with Bilbao being the host team. So I'm guessing you would favour Bilbao.
I would favour Bilbao. And there's a few players in that Bilbao team I wouldn't mind coming to the Prem.
Williams being one of them. Only scored 4 goals though. So is he one of these players that looks great in the eye but not much end product?
Maybe. And he's been heavily linked with Arsenal, hasn't he?
Owen, it's been great having you on. There's a lot of good European games they look forward to. If you feel like you can't wait until tomorrow night for a football game, there is one just about to start. Bournemouth taking on Fulham, 2 teams that like the attack and score goals, so that may be something to watch. Also, Shamrock Rovers take on Cork as well. For any League Ireland fans tonight in their game of hand. Rovers could win that and really climb a few spots.
Just speaking of that, Derry imploded the other night, didn't they?
Yeah, I've listened to Barry's podcast and it was really worth listening to actually. So again, I know Barry was on earlier on commenting. I'm not sure if he's still watching, but make sure to check out his podcast for all things Thursday.
Who do we play this week?
Galway on Good Friday away, and then Monday Sligo on Tuesday.
We have to beat Sligo. Like they're worse.
Yeah,
They're
that's
bottom,
well,
aren't
I think they had a very difficult start last year, and then they improved a lot. Funny enough,
they?
there was a player playing for Sligo in the Brandywell at the back end of last year, Henry Francis. And he was, I heard he was unknown from Arsenal. He actually made the bench for Arsenal on Saturday, so
I've
he
seen
looked
that.
very talented. And I'm not surprised he was on that Arsenal bench the weekend because he looked like a real player.
But I don't know. Derry need to pull their socks up, or they'll get dragged. They'll get dragged into the bottom half, into the bottom conversation.
Well, they're definitely not going to be anywhere near the top. So
Yeah. Not this year,
difficult.
unfortunately.
No, difficult times ahead. Owen, thanks for coming on. It's been brilliant having you on. We will be back on Friday to review all these European games. Hopefully, for my sake, Spurs still have something to shout about for the next few weeks, and they're playing Bodo Glimt, I would hope. For the semi-final. But no, I'd actually say this today, even if we already won this competition, I'll be delighted, of course, but you couldn't forget about the league campaign. It's been that bad.
The league.
Actually, there was a fella saying today, remember all those fans that says, "Oh, I would take 17th if I meant won the trophy." He says, "Now that we've actually loved it," he says it was just a silly thing to say because it's just pain after pain after pain every week. Look, let's hope Spurs can end up
Mind the year Wigan got relegated and won the FA Cup and went into Europe next year and got trounced.
Haven't been back in the Premier League since. Sorry, that just shows you. But anyway, Owen, thanks for coming on. If you're new around here, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content, and we'll see you on Friday. Looking back at these weekends, or this midweek games in the Europa League and the Champions League, and of course looking ahead to a bumper Easter weekend of football. So, Owen, thanks very much, and see you very soon.
See you there. Cheers.